Shannon, what we're seeing right now is a full-scale invasion. I spoke to a U.S. official tonight when the initial missiles began striking these various cities in Ukraine, and I was told that we are seeing pre-assault fires. We can expect this to go on for a few hours. Then this will be followed by a land attack. And I was told by a senior U.S. official that who's monitoring the situation right now, that you can expect all of the full forces of Vladimir Putin that he's arrayed to then enter into Ukraine. So this is the beginning of a very serious, full-scale invasion that will be followed by a land assault. You're seeing these pre-assault fires. These are ballistic missiles. They're cruise missiles. You will expect to hear it will be followed by artillery. They are taking out command and control sites. This is something I would not be surprised to be seeing waves of air assault to begin at any time. It's a little surprising that they're doing this at first light. You would expect something like this to be done overnight, but it's clear Vladimir Putin wants the world to see what he is doing. What struck me from his speech tonight was the chilling words that he used when he started talking about demilitarizing and denazifying Ukraine. Supposedly, there have been videos all day of Nazis being played on Russian state television. The way in which Putin is describing Ukraine, he's describing it as an existential threat to Russia. This is a figment of his imagination. This is a man, if you look in his eyes, this is somebody who has gone completely mad. What we are seeing tonight is a moment in history, something we have not seen for generations. War on the continent of Europe, a sovereign country being invaded by a nuclear power. One of the reasons is the president, of course, is not sending U.S. troops or promising any sort of air flights over Ukraine to defend Ukraine is because you're talking about a nuclear power. The U.S. and NATO are not going to go to war with a nuclear power, but they are going to support the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians are going to fight. I thought Zelensky's speech tonight, the president, was noble. Many people doubted this President Zelensky and wondered whether he would flee and the way Ashraf Ghani did from Afghanistan. This was a noble speech tonight from this former comedian, late night host, who is now the president of a nation that is being invaded by a nuclear power.
Yeah, you saw the deep passion and commitment from him and the urgency in what he was saying tonight. Jennifer, you also flagged a little bit earlier tonight some of what Putin had to say. He says a couple of words for those who would be tempted to intervene. Russia will respond immediately, and you will have consequences that you never have had before in your history. Is that to the U.S.?
This is a direct message to the U.S. and NATO. One of the reasons you see 11 that Putin has put so many of his surface warships in the Black Sea. 11, you have not only amphibious landing ships, though it is possible that he could use those for Marines to come in and take Odessa, but you also, it is to send a signal. Those warships, those Russian warships in the Black Sea have cruise missiles on them. They are there to tell NATO, don't try to send any warships. Don't move closer. Remember, we had the USS Harry S. Truman near Italy. We have positioned, there are some submarines carrying out exercises this week. But Putin would be misreading NATO and the U.S. The U.S. has been very calibrated in making sure that it is bolstering its Article 5 NATO allies in the Baltics, Poland, Lithuania, the Baltics, as well as Romania, but not to provoke Putin by putting excessive numbers of forces there that would then justify what we are seeing tonight in terms of this invasion into this war against Ukraine.
And Jennifer, while I have you, NATO's Secretary General also putting out a statement tonight condemning what Russia has done, saying we're going to stick together. It says we stand with the people of Ukraine at this terrible time. NATO will do all it takes to protect and defend all allies. Of course, that doesn't include Ukraine. That was one of the sticking points with Putin, who wanted a guarantee that Ukraine would never be a part of NATO. But while this is confined to a country for now that does not have an Article 5 obligation, how closely now is NATO drawn into this potential conflict, which we hope does not broaden any further.
Well, I think you have to listen. When you have a madman like Putin who is making the kind of statements and revising history the way he has in his recent speeches, you have to look at what he's saying, because leaders like this, they say what they're going to do. They telegraph their punches. And so if in the speech, the written speech that he wrote last July and sent out to his armed forces justifying this invasion of Ukraine, he also mentioned, quite worrisome, and this is something that U.S. intelligence is watching closely, he mentioned Poland, he mentioned Lithuania, and the history of those countries. That should be of concern to anyone in Europe tonight and anyone in NATO, because Poland, there's a very worrisome, right now Putin has about 30,000 forces inside Belarus. Nobody's talking about how basically Belarus has become a vassal state of Putin. He's already extended the borders of Russia in terms of the way he's positioned his forces in Belarus. And that is just across the border from Poland. And that is why the U.S. sent the 82nd Airborne and other forces to reassure the eastern flank of NATO. But this is, once you start a war like Putin has started tonight, you start on an escalation ladder, and you don't know. There are unintended consequences. And what we don't know is how this ends.
Mm-hmm. Jennifer Griffin, thank you very much. We will check back in with you as this continues to play out.